Hello. I am back. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your patience in me taking my time, figuring my things out, slowing down. Yeah, I appreciate it. So today's episode is all about Jupiter and Gemini, which is beginning on May 25th and lasting about a year. Jupiter usually spends about a year in each sign, sometimes a bit longer with retrogrades and things like that. And Jupiter is really a beautiful planet. To set the scene a little bit, for the past year or so, Jupiter has been in Taurus. And I'm recording this as Jupiter's in the last degrees, of Taurus. And also I'm recording this in the last few hours of Taurus season. So I feel like some of the themes of Jupiter in Taurus were more steady, slow growth, and not rushing things, doing things deliberately, taking our time, communing with nature, following the rhythms of nature a little bit more, since Taurus is an earth sign, so tied up in all of that. And life is about to get a little different, to say the least, once Jupiter moves into Gemini on May 25th, and it'll be there for about a year. And I love talking about Jupiter because it's not often talked about. Astrologers or people or whatever are often talking more about the trickier astrological things, like, I don't know, Mercury retrograde, or Pluto's doing something scary, or Saturn return stuff and how your life can turn upside down. I mean, all of that can be very true and all of it is really important, but a lot of times we don't focus on the nice cosmic boosts we get from planets like Jupiter. And Jupiter's a really interesting one because it kind of bridges the more personal planets we have with the more collective planets out there. So personal planets are Mercury, Venus, and Mars, for example. Like, those really show us very specific things about ourselves. For example, my Mercury is in Leo. And although I'm a Cancer, which is considered more of a shy sign, maybe, I don't really have a problem speaking what's on my mind and expressing myself. And yeah, so that tells you a lot about a person, right? Their Mercury, for example. And then, Venus and Mars can be about the feminine and masculine aspects of us. Venus is relationships, how we want to receive things, our values, our ideas of beauty. Mars is our drive, can be about our sexuality, how we assert ourselves. And then we come to Jupiter, which is still personal in a lot of ways, but it really connects us more to other people and to the collective. I definitely spoke about this in the episode about the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we had in April, but let's get into what Jupiter is all about again, because it's important and underrated and not always discussed. So Jupiter is about your beliefs in a greater sense. It's your intellectual filter on the world. It's where you tend to find joy and abundance, expansion, your sense of optimism. It's about knowledge, luck, faith, self-development, self-realization. It can also be about where you might indulge or overdo things, promise too much, be overconfident. It's about bigger truths in life. It's about transcendence, and it's about growth on a psychological, physical, cultural, and spiritual level. Jupiter is often related to higher education. So not so much like elementary school and things like that, but more like going to university or doing a PhD or really developing your professional studies. That's more of Jupiter stuff. It's about philosophy as well. It can also be about law. So these like kind of bigger governing principles of the world. So politics can kind of tie in there as well. And it's also about how we socially deal with different cultural structures. So again, it's bridging the gap between personal and more collective. And I think our beliefs, because Jupiter has to do with beliefs, it sort of makes sense, right? Because our beliefs can be personal to us, but also inform how we are going to interact with the world. And I want to emphasize also the fact that Jupiter has to do with the superconscious mind. So we're going to talk about Mercury a little bit because it's very relevant to Gemini, but it's about this greater, broader perspective, right? So that's why I like to bring in the term superconscious mind with Jupiter. And let's talk about Gemini now, since we're going to be in Jupiter and Gemini vibes very shortly, or maybe as you're listening to this. So Gemini is the third sign of the zodiac, and it's ruled by Mercury. It's also a mutable air sign. So Gemini is an air sign. It's a mutable air sign. What does that mean? I mean, air signs have a lot to do with knowledge in general, connecting things together, and mutable signs are always at the bridge of two different seasons. So for Gemini, it's spring and summer. We're transitioning from spring into summer in the Northern Hemisphere. So it adds to this idea that mutable signs are very flexible and adaptable. And I really like this little phrase. Gemini has to do with the light, changeable breezes of early summer, which is very apt and apropos, especially if you know any Gemini people or if you have strong Gemini energy in your chart. It's very light and effervescent and exciting and stimulating kind of energy. So Gemini in general is about curiosity, flexibility, effervescence, intellect, making connections between things and people, socializing, different facets of our mental capacity. The energy of Gemini is very quick-witted and quick-moving. It's multifaceted, and its energy is very masculine and feminine at the same time. Like Mercury and then Gemini can kind of be associated with queer energy because it's not like one thing or another, and it's not super like this polarity or this end of it. And it's symbolized by twins. So, I mean, the classic like Gemini stereotype is like split personality, two-faced, whatever, but it's more this idea of like being multifaceted. And important thing to know about Gemini energy is it's certainly very versatile, but it's not really about concentration or persistence. Taurus, for example, definitely has more concentration and persistence, which may have been very helpful for us during this Jupiter and Taurus period to focus on certain things. But we're not going to get that as much with Jupiter and Gemini. This mercurial Gemini energy has a bit of a trickster element to it, which is something to be aware of. I mean, it can be a lot of fun, but we have to make sure we're getting to the truth of the matter if that's what we want. I mean, Jupiter is definitely pretty concerned with the truth. Maybe sometimes Mercury isn't as much and Gemini isn't as much. But there's this playfulness inherent in Gemini, which is really nice. Mercury and Gemini also have to do with commerce, the exchange of ideas, and Gemini is associated with the third house in astrology, which has a lot to do with our local community, neighbors, and also aspects of our family, but more like siblings, cousins, and extended family, not like our parents. So that's also something to think about during this Jupiter and Gemini time. And in terms of the body parts that it rules, Gemini rules the shoulders, lungs, arms, hands, and the nervous system. Most interestingly, so that is something to keep in mind during this Jupiter and Gemini time. Do you have good practices to calm or balance your nervous system? Some of the things I do is try not to overstimulate myself, or if I'm overstimulated, take away the stimulation for an extended period of time. For example, if I felt like I've just had a day where I've been like listening to so many things, like different podcasts, watching things on YouTube, scrolling through Instagram and getting really like sucked into all that. At night, I like won't watch anything. And if I listen to anything, it's just like music, just to get that stuff out and to get my nervous system and get myself back to more homeostasis. Things like meditation and mindfulness can be really helpful too. Breath work, spending time in nature. I love going for walks without my phone. You know, like I'm sure the step counter people don't like that because you can't count your steps if you don't have your phone or whatever. But I don't care. It's nice to not feel imprisoned by your little rectangle that you carry with you. And in contrast to Jupiter, which is about the superconscious mind, Gemini is very much about the conscious mind, which is still very important, but just note the difference and note that kind of dichotomy there. So when we have Jupiter and Gemini together as a thing, one thing to note is that when Jupiter's in Gemini, it's in what's called detriment. And this is because Jupiter's home is Sagittarius, because Jupiter's the ruler of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the opposite sign of Gemini. So Jupiter's favorite place is Sagittarius, meaning Jupiter's least favorite place is Gemini. That's something to keep in mind. It's not its favorite place to be or its most effective, okay? But one thing we know for sure is that things are definitely going to speed up in this year, starting on May 25th. So if you felt like things are a bit slow, if certain things are like dragging their feet kind of in your life, I'm sure that's going to change for you quite soon, quite soon. So again, a little Jupiter and Taurus recap. It was so much about slow growth and changes in our financial system, agriculture, nature, stuff like that. And we definitely had some sudden changes in those areas, especially because Uranus has also been in Taurus. So that's something to keep in mind. So Jupiter and Taurus happened from May 16th, 2023 to May 25th, 2024. And then our Jupiter and Gemini dates are going to be May 25th, 2024 to June 9th, 2025. So again, we have about a year of each Jupiter sign extravaganza. So what we can expect for sure from this Jupiter and Gemini period is lots of ideas, lots of inspiration for sure. And again, the pace of life will feel quicker because Gemini is just naturally a quicker moving, mutable, adaptable, flexible sign. On a collective level, some of the things to look out for is transformation of the communication sector on the whole. So this can be like publishing, marketing, fashion, things like paper, textiles, insurance, social media, networking. Let's see how all of that communication stuff is going to transform and expand. Are certain things going to be taken to an extreme? You know, I'm curious, especially because Pluto's in Aquarius, right? Which I've talked about on previous episodes. Pluto's in Aquarius, which is going to change a lot of things for the collective, especially when it comes to technology. I'm curious to see how Jupiter and Gemini is also going to interact with that, is also going to come into the mix. Like, how is this going to transform things like AI, which I've said many times on the podcast that I don't like very much, but that's just me. We can talk about that another time if you want. But on a personal level, the ways that we can really tap into this Jupiter and Gemini energy is we can focus on ways of expanding our mind. What new things do you want to learn, right? How can you exchange information with other people, learn, grow, pick up new things? Your wit and curiosity can be the thing that helps you attract opportunities, good fortune, good vibes, nice things. And it's also a really good time for research as well. I mean, having Jupiter and Gemini is very stimulating to the mind. It's very mind expanding. So it's a great time to dig into research and especially see different sides of an issue, see different sides of a topic, and really get into it, So things to be mindful of. One thing I'm interested in seeing is how we're going to collectively deal with information overload, which I think is already something that's very, very front of mind, because in 2024, if you have a smartphone, which most people do, if you're listening to this, you probably do, or you have access to some kind of technology, we can access what feels like infinite information, infinite sources, infinite opinions of people, etc. And I'm sure some of you, at least occasionally, feels like it's just too much, like too much information, like brain shutting down, like not working. And I know that sometimes we can seek out information or stimulation as a way of like numbing ourselves. And of course, we need to zone out once in a while and just like be entertained. But I know for me, sometimes it's almost like a reflex to just like open up Instagram and go through stories, or like open up Reddit, or open up like whatever news website and just like take in the stuff. So it's really important to cultivate good boundaries when it comes to what you're taking in. Don't just be a completely open vessel. Like, obviously we want to be open-minded, but we know when there's too much coming in, right? When we need to put good filters on stuff. And Jupiter is our intellectual filter. So let's not forget that, right? It's not just like it can overdo things, but we also have the capacity to be like, this is okay. This much information is okay for me today. Stop. Blah. Other things to be mindful of during this Jupiter and Gemini time is too many ideas without a plan to actually execute them. That's going to be one. Gossip, because we're dealing with an expansion of the exchange of information. So there are going to be some extra gossiping there, which might not be great. Also indecision. So not being able to decide on things because it's like, oh, well, there's this option and that option and that option. I could travel here, there. All these plane tickets are the same prices. All the hotels are around the same amount of money. So that doesn't matter. Or like, these places are all accessible to me, but I don't know where to go. Or I don't know what decision to make next when it comes to my career, or whatever it is. That is something to keep in mind. We don't want to get lost in indecision when it's time to act and it's time to do. And I think I've mentioned it on this podcast before, but I am relaunching my one-on-one coaching. And this is going to be a new container called Reclaim, Activate, Flow. And in it, there is always a focus on what is energetically correct for you, and therefore what makes sense for you to focus on at a given time. So working with me in this way is going to be really helpful, especially in this upcoming year that could sometimes feel really overwhelming, or really like, oh my God, I have like 5 ideas of like things I want to start or things I want to do. I can be there to help you figure out what are the things to prioritize and what is actually going to move the needle, because that is what I am so big on. Because we can listen to whoever, social media experts, career experts, motivational speakers, whatever, that are saying 50 different things. And I mean, imagine trying to take all of the advice, even if it's very good, well-intentioned advice. It's just not okay. It's just not going to be helpful to do that, right? We need to narrow down what is correct for you, what your soul wants to take on in this lifetime. We want to leverage the energies that are already personally present for you rather than swimming against the current. It is so much nicer to be in your little inflatable donut and float downstream instead of trying to swim against the current, Way easier, way easier. Sounds way nicer to do that. So if you're interested in that, I'm opening up 3 spots for the beta round, which are going to be at a huge discount and before I officially launch, and then the price will double for sure. So really looking forward to that. And if you're interested in that, there is a link to schedule a free 30-minute call with me in the show notes of this episode. So wherever you're listening, go to the episode page, scroll, and you'll see the link for Reclaim, Activate, Flow. And I'm very excited to see some of you in there and get started and dig into it all. Okay, so let's talk about the last time Jupiter was in Gemini for context. So it's about every 12 years, right, that we come back to the Jupiter sign that we've been in. The last time was from June 11th, 2012 to June 25th, 2013. So rewind a little bit and see what was happening for you around then. For me, it was a huge time of transformation. Huge. This was going into my last year of university. And I really do remember feeling like life was speeding up. And that's, I was like, okay, what's happening next? What am I doing? Do I want to do this or that? Definitely remember feeling overwhelmed by things. And definitely remember doing some crazy things. And one of them was with a few friends, I went on a road trip to Detroit to go to Movement Festival. And to be completely honest, that weekend was probably the closest thing to a bender I've ever experienced in my life. And I remember we stayed in a house with like all these bunk beds. It was a really cool house. It was like this young couple owned it, and they did like bike rentals, and they had a community garden. Anyway, it was like super cool. But we like stayed in a place with someone's like internet friends. So it was like this group of guys that were like one of my friends' internet friends. They were cool. It was fine. But it was like such a whirlwind. So I wouldn't be surprised if you have some moments this year that are like whirlwind, kind of crazy energy. And I would say like the medicine for Gemini energy, because Gemini energy is very cerebral. It's very in your head. It's very up here in the ether, is to really remember the things that ground you, right? Remember to put your bare feet on the ground, for example, spend time in nature, slow down when you need to, make sure you're eating properly, make sure you're not just like stimulating yourself with like drinking coffee all day or whatever it is, eating nice grounding food, for example. But yeah, that was a really wild time for me. And I'm curious, you can let me know how it was for you. You can DM me on Instagram, for example, Life Forces Inc., or I have a link for Q&A for this podcast, and you can put your comments and feedback in there. So let's now talk about how Jupiter in Gemini is going to affect each rising sign over the course of this next year. And as a reminder, okay, so as I'm going through each rising sign, think in the areas of life that I'm going to recite based on your rising sign, think about curiosity related to that area of life, research, expanding your mind in that area of life, learning about that part of life, communicating and meeting new people related to that part of life. Cool? Okay, great. So for Aries, this is going to be expanding and activating your 3rd house, which is all about writing, communicating. It's a great time to work on mindset. It's a great time to do some shorter distance travel, focus on your siblings and extended family, such as cousins, really reflect on your childhood environment and lean into your intelligence, search for knowledge. And for sure, for you, regulating your nervous system is going to be very important as well. So especially for you, Aries, if there's something new you want to learn, if there's a writing project you've been meaning to work on, now is an amazing time for it. For Taurus rising people, this is going to be affecting your second house of finances, self-worth, possessions, values. So it's a great time to really learn more about these things, get curious about these things. The second house is also about your experience of ownership, the effective use of your potential, and your own things in general and what belongs to you. So I feel like this could be a really nice time to read self-development or finance books and really like get curious about that. Don't stay stuck in the ways you've been thinking about or doing those kind of things in your life. Then we have Gemini. Gemini, this is going to be affecting your first house, which is really about you. It's about the self. It's about your ego. It's about putting yourself out there, your individuality, new beginnings. So for you in your personal life, things are emphasized. Personal growth is emphasized. Great time for you to focus on that. For Cancer risings, this is going to be affecting your 12th house, which is all about your subconscious, inner work, different endings, spirituality, being of service to others, finishing things up, preparing for a new cycle. So I don't know, I'm getting this idea of like maybe Cancer risings, one way you could be of service to others is to like talk to people more and help them through their issues a little bit just by speaking to them, right? Just having conversations. For Leo risings, this is going to be affecting your 11th house that has to do with groups, friends, community, humanity, higher aspirations, your dreams. It's about the best way to put to use and enjoy what you've achieved. It's about expressing yourself as a member of community and imagining better modes of organization. So great time to learn more about collective things, maybe community organizing, maybe how to start a club or something like that, or goal setting in a more maybe like systematic or research-based way, or focusing on research for the benefit of more than just you. For Virgo, this is affecting your 10th house of career. So a lot of the expansion that will be happening for you is having to do with your most fruitful ways to achieve your professional life, your career, your public reputation, and just in general, how you're fulfilling your individual self through participating in the world. So career expansion, transformation, growth is a big thing for you this year, Virgo. For Libra, this is going to be affecting your 9th house, which has to do with higher education, beliefs, religion, long distance travel, deeper understandings of things, expanding your consciousness in a greater way, and trying to generalize and communicate things such as your own beliefs. So it's a great time to get curious about your own beliefs, to allow them to change and expand. Maybe you feel like you changed your belief system a few times this year. Just be mindful of getting sucked into like guru kind of stuff, like, of course, there's often teachers that we want to follow and learn from, and that's not inherently bad, but just make sure you're still exercising your agency. For Scorpio, Jupiter in Gemini is going to be hitting your 8th house, which has to do with shared resources, other people's money, taxes, and inheritance, for example. So it's a great time to learn more about the financial system, not only personal finances, but like, do you know how your taxes work? Is it time to maybe find a new accountant or get more serious about that, or talk to people more about shared resources or how you build wealth in a bigger way? The 8th house can also really be about deep soul work. So it might be a good time for that. Might be a good time for talk therapy or any kind of like deep work like that. It's about uncovering transformation and regeneration as well. So I'm sure there's a lot of ways you're going to transform in this next year, Scorpio rising. Then we have Sagittarius. So for you, Sagittarius, this is going to be affecting your 7th house, which is all about close relationships, partnership, collaboration, to name a few. So it could be a moment where if you're already in a relationship, it kind of moves to another level. You meet new people that you become close to. You meet new people that you want to collaborate with. It also might expand feelings of balance. There can be a lot about like cooperation and sharing here. And also this idea of fulfilling your individual destiny through partnership. So through other people in your life, being able to move forward on your path and be supported in that way. So for Capricorn, this is going to be hitting your 6th house, which has to do with health, routine, habits, daily life, and work. So the thing with Jupiter being in the 6th house, it can definitely help improve certain aspects of your health. But because it can be about overdoing things, there could be like overindulgences that lead to health problems. So that's something to be aware of. And I also wonder, because we're in Jupiter and Gemini here, it's definitely good to learn about productivity if you're curious about that, or learn more about like nice daily habits that will benefit you, but don't overdo the research to the point where you get overwhelmed. Like, don't be like, oh my God, I have to listen to every single like health podcast or every single thing from this person or whatever. Know when enough is enough and have boundaries there so you don't overdo it. Yeah. And the 6th house can also have to do with this idea of service and discipleship. So think about like what greater causes you want to devote yourself to. That can be another thing here. For Aquarius, this Jupiter and Gemini time is going to really expand your creativity. Things to do with children can be on the forefront. So maybe that's inner child. Maybe that's, thinking about starting a family or doing something with children. It's also about play, fun, self-expression, maybe some love affairs, flirting, acting from your innermost nature in general is going to be a big one. And yeah, exteriorizing your own power and actually putting it to use. So again, here, it could be that you get a lot of creative inspiration, but make sure you have a period of like editing things. Like, okay, I can't do these 5 things at once. Let's start with 1 or 2, for example. Or like, I can see if the romance aspect comes into play, there just being like a lot of flirting to the point where you might forget other important things in life. I don't know. 5th house can also be about like games and gambling. So something to be mindful of if you're like prone to getting into that kind of stuff. Like, let's not develop an gambling addiction this year, Aquarius. Okay. And finally, Pisces, this is going to be expanding your 4th house of home, family, ancestors, roots, your inner foundations. So it's a great time to maybe learn more about your family, research your family or your ancestors, focus on those familial connections in general, or just like do things that improve your home, or maybe you're thinking about moving to a new place. This is I can picture like Pisces rising people like making the Pinterest boards, going on real estate websites, getting really excited, like looking for a new place to live. Could be about that. But in a more abstract way, the 4th house is really about the integration of your personality. So it's really important here to lean into and expand on who you are fundamentally, who you are when no one else is watching, when you don't have to perform for other people. So really focus on your innermost self here, Pisces, for the next year while Jupiter is in Gemini. So that's all I got for the 12 signs. 12 rising signs and how Jupiter and Gemini will affect you. If you want to dive deeper and master your personal astrology, reclaim, activate, flow, baby. – This is what I love helping people do and see, because the more we know and truly understand about ourselves, the more we can actually be empowered, and the more that you are unfuckwithable, okay? Because when you don't really know yourself, I mean, life is a journey, I think, of like self-discovery and learning more about yourself. So that's cool. That's part of the process. But when you don't seek to know or understand yourself better, I feel like that's when external things can really mess with you, can really take you off your path, can lead you into unnecessary darkness or despair and things like that. So I would love for you to join me in the beta round of Reclaim, Activate, Flow that I talked about a little bit before. It's my new signature one-on-one experience. And it's all about reclaiming your energy, reclaiming who you truly are, being able to activate it in a way that feels good for you, and flow with life in your highest expression of self so that you have more impact and that you can live life from a more abundant place rather than from not enoughness. Because also, when you don't really know yourself, when you don't really know what you're here for, it's really easy to think that you're not enough, but that's not true, because you're enough exactly as you are. And you've already been given everything you need to succeed. It's just about remembering that. It's just about rediscovering all that. It's just about tapping into that, but it's already there. It's not about changing 50 things about yourself and feeling like it's a struggle. Like, it can be fun, right? It can be fun to be on this journey and to feel like every day is more and more magical. Yeah. So that's all I got. I'm really happy to be back, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming episodes I have planned. I am hoping to get an episode out next week. I am traveling. So yeah, I'm on a roll. So if I can record another one today, we'll be Gucci. But I love you all so much. Don't forget, you can also read, I have 2 monthly forecasts every single month. One is with Aura Collective, and that is our horoscopes, holistic horoscopes that come out every single month. And it has a general overview of the month and also by rising sign, what to expect. So that's a great thing, great resource to look into. You can find those on the Aura Collective app or at auracollective.com. And then also for Leave-Ali or Leave-Li, I'm sorry, I still don't know how to pronounce it. If you go to my Instagram, also Life Forces Inc., you can find it there. But I do a monthly Cosmic Insights for Conscious Business, which gives you some days of the month to leverage for different things like networking or creative stuff or strategizing. That's really fun too. So those are 2 great free resources that I have. But other than that, the way to work with me right now is in the beta round of Reclaim, Activate, Flow. And you can sign up for a free 30-minute call to see if it's a good fit for you right now in the link in the show notes, or go to my website. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with some of you there. And because it's a beta round, it'll be like at least half off of the regular price when I launch. So it's a great time to get in. Great time for transformation. Gemini season is, especially with Jupiter and Gemini now. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and see you soon.